Despite the massive hype for Silent Hill F, I think it's pretty safe to say that longtime series fans have been a little bit concerned about what's been perceived to be a shift in combat styles towards something a little bit more Souls-like. In order to calm those fears, I decided to speak to series producer Okamoto-san and director Al Yang to find out exactly how the combat works.
So this is one of the things that we see the term Souls-like being thrown around on the internet quite a bit. And I think it's a label that's a little bit disingenuous right now. So I think a lot of modern players, they'll see like, oh, there's a stamina meter, there's a dodge, and they're like, okay, it's a Souls-like. But to be very honest, a lot of these things we actually pulled from classic Silent Hill titles. So if you look at Silent Hill 4, there's a charge meter in there for your attacks, kind of like our focus meter. And then for even Silent Hill 3, there's a stamina meter. You see it later on, but these things aren't new and exclusive to Souls-like games. They've been part of action horror games for a very, very long time. And for us, we think it's a label that if you have these things, you're labeled as a Souls-like. And we'd like to reiterate that we are an action horror game, but we are not a Souls-like. When we were looking at Silent Hill F, this is the first Silent Hill title for a very long time. And of course, we wanted to respect the older fans out there, but also kind of bring in kind of fresh blood, maybe people who haven't played Silent Hill. And then because of this, we spent a lot of time kind of looking at the classic titles and be like, okay, what's the gameplay that people could expect here? But what's also some gameplay that newer fans might be interested in? And one of the things we really settled on is Silent Hill 4 had a very extensive combat system that was also very melee focused. So from here, we basically said, okay, if we're going to do this, we still have to have all the trademarks of classic kind of a horror gaming, traditional horror gaming combat. So there's some things that are very interesting and very similar, which is like distance. If you are closer to someone in a traditional horror game with guns, then it means it's more dangerous, you know? And then because of that, you have things like kind of aiming, your crosshairs, they have to kind of go in. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of weight. It slows down the entire pacing of the game. So because we settled on melee combat, because we wanted to kind of go in a fresh direction, we had to take a lot of these core systems that slowed down the pace, that regulated combat in traditional horror games, and then find an analogy for them in our title. So again, aiming and then crosshairs going down is kind of like our focus meter. Again, there's precedence for this. If you look back to Silent Hill 3, Heather, again, not the biggest character out there, not full of muscles, kind of deal. So again, we looked to her for a lot of inspiration. And on the combat side, you'll notice we focused on two major things. One is that you don't feel like a superhero. There's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of combat, but it shouldn't feel like you're just one-shotting everything. You're just crazy overpowered. Honestly, it's always a fight for survival. It's tense. You have to pick your fights very carefully because you have limited resources here. And at the same time, we took a lot of effort in designing her emotions, all the animations. So it's like she's struggling. These are heavy weapons. She's flailing wildly. It's less about skill and more about survival. And I hope the players can kind of see that through the way that she acts and then her motions.
So for those types of players, we have a type of experience in the form of a difficulty setting called story mode. So for players who want that type of experience, we would like to recommend the story mode difficulty.
So again, for the sanity system, this is one of the support mechanics for the game. And as we said before, we want to put the game in a more action-based focus, but again, we don't want to alienate kind of classic Silent Hill players or players who might not be as familiar with action games. So sanity system, what it allows you to do is, for instance, there are counters in the game and you have to kind of grab the right timing for it. But by expending this resource, it kind of slows everything down. It again, it slows the pace of the game down so that players are able to easier grasp this thing or execute stronger moves. So a good analogy is in classic traditional range-based horror games, you have to wait for the crosshair to shrink before you get maximum damage. And again, that slows the pacing of the game down. For us, the focus is kind of the same deal with using the sanity system. It's like, okay, I'm really trying to pay attention to the monster here. Until my gauge fills up, I can unleash a stronger, like a headshot attack. But in the middle, if they decide to attack me, then I have a much stronger window to basically counter back. So it's there to really regulate the pace of the gameplay and to kind of help the player defeat combat easier.
It's got my home too. The halls, the doors, everything's changed.
So the types of elements that longtime fans can expect from this game are the types of elements that you would expect from traditional Silent Hill games, like the environment, the graphics, the storytelling. All of those traditional elements, players can expect to find those. And for this game, the core aspect of the game's narrative focuses around the protagonist Hinako and her struggles of trying to fight the societal oppression that women face. So for this game, players can follow her journey and follow along her path towards trying to fight back against such types of suppression. So from there, yes, again, if you try out the story mode, you'll be able to follow her journey very much up close.
Because it's the newest game in a very long kind of running series, and it's been a bit of a hiatus. For us, the most important things is to go back and grab the atmosphere, like that classic tension and dread, the kind of not knowing what's around the corner. Like, I think for us, the atmosphere in Silent Hill is something very unique that no other game has. So we spent a lot of time making sure that fans would kind of recognize this, not just from the gameplay, but also from, there's some story deep cuts I think some longtime fans might pick up on and enjoy. But then just like in the beginning of the game, as you're walking down the hill, the empty kind of town might seem familiar to some longtime fans. So some things aren't very direct, for instance, but we try to make a lot of things in the game that would feel at home to a lot of these longtime fans.
With that in mind, today's a bit too extraordinary.
Yes, Silent Hill Elf will be coming out in September 25th on the Xbox platforms, PS5, Steam, Epic Store, and Microsoft Windows.
Who are you? Please. Just die.
Massive thanks there to Okamoto-san and Al Yang for answering my questions. Now, one thing I want to bring up is something they told me off camera, and that is that the gameplay of Silent Hill F is actually cyclical, and that there are multiple endings that you can unlock through repeated play. And also that as you play, you can unlock new skills and strengths for Hinako. That means if you start on story difficulty and then play on harder difficulties, you'll have experience from the playtime before, and Hinako will be slightly stronger than before. This is a game that's meant to be replayed multiple times, so there is no shame in starting the game on story mode, experiencing that classic Silent Hill story, and then going in and experiencing some of that harder combat. Anyway, hopefully this has calmed your fears a little bit, but for more about Silent Hill F, stay tuned to us here at Gamescom 2025.